The mission for today is to take this crappy Viglen all-in-one machine. It's a Pentium 4, it costs next to nothing, it's held together by parcel tape. My aim here is to clean it up and see if I can turn it into a mean, lean Pentium 4 gaming machine. Viglen was a company that was originally set up to cater to Acorn computer users, but was bought out by Alan Sugar in 1994. For those unfamiliar with Alan Sugar, he's the guy who founded Amstrad, also computer manufacturer, also bought out Sinclair later on, and probably the closest thing the UK's had to a Steve Jobs kind of character. Alan Sugar also presents the reality TV show The Apprentice here in the UK, so kind of our Donald Trump in that respect.
You're fired.
In 2014, Alan Sugar sold Viglen to a company called XNA, and if you look on their website, it does appear that the Omnino brand is still alive and kicking. So back to our ugly piece of rubbish computer. Turns out this is a Viglen Omnino HS, and I did manage to find a user guide, although it is a very basic one. Alan Sugar's main selling point for his computers was ease of use and simplicity, and this user guide is certainly that, just a basic setup guide telling you how to plug it all together when you take it out of the box. So, you can see this thing isn't in great shape. The screen bezel isn't even held onto the case by screws, it's held on by parcel tape, and we've got some electrical safety stickers down here indicating that it was once part of an office setup. Down on the side there's a couple of USB 2 ports, an on-off switch and a headphone jack. Base unit just has the bits for the power supply, the input jack and the on-off switch. And lurking away at the bottom here, hard to get to, is the I/O panel with two PS2 ports for keyboard and mouse, a serial port, a parallel port, a VGA port, 4 USB 2 ports, 1 Ethernet jack, and inputs for the onboard sound chip. And now for the exciting bit, let's open her up and have a look inside. This is more like opening a parcel than a computer as it's held together by tape, but let's see what we've got. Okay, let's get the motherboard out and take a look. Looks like we've got a stock cooler on the Pentium 4, we've got a full complement of RAM, which is good. 2 PCI slots, 2 PCI Express, including a 16x1 for the graphics card, and some SATA inputs. This is pushing the boundaries of what I consider retro, but it probably is the very end of what I consider retro. Yeah, so instead of a backplate on this thing, once the motherboard's out, you're actually looking at the back of the monitor. All the cables seem to be routed through this conduit thingy running down the back of the monitor. Removing some of this plastic reveals the speaker bays, and the front bezel for the CD drives and stuff is there also. That is in a bit of a mess. Taking this off, there's cracks, there's a bit missing across the bottom below the floppy drive, and fortunately I've got the missing bits, so hopefully I can glue that all back together. Getting the CPU cooler off was a bit of a pain. Not done one of these Pentium 4s for a long time. I've undone these plastic clips on the back, not sure if that's right. So here's the heart of the beast, the Pentium 4 3.2 GHz. It's an LG A775 processor. And this one's actually the Cedar Mill, which is the last pressing of the Pentium 4, which is basically a Prescott that had its core reduced so that it reduced the TDP and the power consumption, and it also slightly reduced the net burst architecture in that it got rid of things like virtualization and a couple of other things that I don't really care about. Memory wise, looks like we've got 4 1GB sticks already in this machine, and I believe that's the maximum this motherboard can deal with, so that's good. The motherboard's an Intel board, it's a D945 GTP. It looks like quite a cool little micro ATX motherboard. It's got potential for overclocking, it's got some potential for expansion because the front side bus goes up higher than the 800 that this chip is set at. Not that I plan to upgrade it. Memory in here is 667 MHz stuff, so that's the fastest the motherboard can take as well, so memory's all good. And this 945 board was also the very first to include onboard graphics from Intel, so not really interested in that either. So where to begin? There's not a lot needs doing to this thing internally, apart from maybe adding a graphics card and maybe get some decent speakers on it, because I'm not quite sure how these things are going to sound. So I think we'll get this front bezel off the front of the screen and give that a clean and see what the damage is on the plastics there. We'll get as much of that parcel tape goo off this machine as we can, and it does look like there's a bit of scratching going on this bezel, so we'll see what we can do to clean that up. Nah, I'm not expecting games to sound great on these. So we'll just ease away some of the components like the PSU. I don't want to dismantle it too much because the cables are so tightly rooted in this thing, but we'll just move everything enough just to get in and clean out any dead insects and spider webs that might be lurking in there. I thought all I was going to have to do with this DVD-ROM was to reattach the bezel, which had fallen off, but this drive has problems. The eject mechanism is broken somehow. Not quite so easy to fix as a full-size unit, so I think I'll just find another laptop drive and try and put a new one in there. Next up was to try and fix these cracks on the drive bay bezel, and so I glued the missing bits back on and tried to put some hot glue behind them so that it gives them a bit more strength. Hopefully that will keep it in place, and at least I had all the parts, so that was complete again, albeit with a little bit of a crack still showing. So we'll get the bezel back in place, and it doesn't look too bad. You can see the crack a little bit, but then again, I mean, while I say this isn't what I class as a totally vintage machine, it is still knocking on 16, 17 years old. And there's a little bit that clips onto the back so that the drive bay bezel is completely sort of enveloping the pillar that holds the monitor. Definitely need to get these stickers off and see if we can clean these speaker covers up a little bit as well. The hard drive's got a funky little slot-on bracket, so that's going to be quite easy to fit. It just sits on the back of the monitor. I gave the motherboard a bit of a brush and a bit of a spray with the canned air just to get rid of any dust, but it's pretty clean. All the capacitors and everything seem to be in great condition, so we can just get this back in and that should be good to go. I've just grabbed a hard drive out the parts bin and we'll stick it onto that mount there. It does feel a bit strange putting a SATA hard drive onto what I'm considering one of my retro builds. Only used to doing this on my modern machines, so strange. So the broken DVD-ROM drive, I had to take it apart to get the CD out because the eject just wasn't working at all. I had a quick look. I tried spraying it with a bit of WD-40 to see if it would loosen anything up, but to no avail, so the drive has to be replaced. I tried to deal with these scratches on the front of the monitor bezel, and some of them were quite deep. So initially what I did was I took some cutting paste and that rubbed the scratches out okay, and then I tried to touch them up individually. I tried a variety of different paints and silver pens and all sorts, but it didn't quite match, so I sort of came to the conclusion that I'm probably going to have to respray the whole thing if I want to get an even look. In the end, I decided not to be subtle, so I just took some sandpaper to the whole thing and sanded those scratches out of there, being careful to try and avoid the logos and the media control decals at the bottom because I want to try and preserve those if I possibly can. So this liquid mask idea didn't work out quite as well as I intended it to. Once I peeled it off, it didn't blend in with the background at all. It looked scabby and tatty. I think I'm going to have to spray over the existing decals and logos and think of another way. Time to get the bezel back together again to put the glass and the black frame back in there. I resprayed it all and it came out quite nicely, so then I tried to print those logos onto some supposedly transparent sticker sheet, which turned out not to be quite so transparent because it actually has quite a milky background and it doesn't look great, so I think I'm going to have to peel those off and think again. Whatever I do with the logos, may as well get the bezel back on there now and start getting this thing back together. The CD replacement is in there now and working correctly, though that seems to be set a bit too far back. It's not flush with the front of the bezel, so I'll have to move that forward. There's always something. There's this sheet that comes between the back of the motherboard and the back of the monitor, which is presumed to protect against shorts against the metal plating, and I forgot to put it on, so I'm going to have to whip the motherboard out again and put that back where it belongs. I've got to say that when I first got this thing with its parcel tape and all, I thought it was an ugly piece of crap. I've never dealt with an all-in-one PC before. I've never owned one past or present, so it's a new experience, but it is kind of growing on me. It's got this kind of 1940s, 1950s science fiction vibe about it. I can see this being on a desk in Metropolis or on the flight deck of Buck Rogers' Starship or something like that. Anyway, time to put some software on there. It's going to be Windows XP Media Center Edition, mostly because that's what I used back in the day, so for a bit of nostalgia. So let's see if we get it installed and get it working. So the installation went smoothly and we're getting some drivers on now. It seemed to take a lot longer than I remember. In fact, that install of Windows XP seemed to take longer than any version previous and any version after that I can remember. But got all the drivers on and it's up and running. It's got a funny green tinge to the screen, but I hope that's just the crappy onboard graphics and that will get improved when I put some better graphic card in there. So this is not a period correct card, but it's a Radeon 7570, which should give us reasonably good Windows XP graphics performance, which is all I'm really looking for. And it's kind of stuck for choice because it's got to be a low profile card and there aren't many out there and the good ones cost a lot of money, so this seems like a good choice. The card only has HDMI or DVI, so we're going to have to get a DVI to VGA converter, which is a bit of a pain. But it works, so just need to get some drivers installed and hopefully we'll have some better graphics. Unfortunately though, the card works okay. There's a problem, it doesn't seem to work. It doesn't play nice with this monitor for some reason. It kind of sits off to the left. It works okay if you do 640 by 480, but anything else and you want 800 by 600 or whatever, it just doesn't line up, and you can position it using the monitor settings and it's still too wide to physically fit inside the monitor, so it goes off the edges at either side basically, which is a bit disappointing. I tried every driver I could find and they all did the same thing to one degree or another, so damn, I got this card especially for this machine. I'll have to go and dig around the parts bin and see if I can find something else. While I was thinking what to do about the graphics card, I had another go at these stickers and I bought some ready printed stickers for the media controls and just had to come up with a couple of words, and I redid the Omnino logo and I feel a lot happier with these. I still think the words on the media controls need to go and I'll come up with a solution for that, but I think I can live with the Omnino logo, so this is better. So I put it all back together just to get it out the way basically and clear my desk and give myself a day or two to go and have a dig around for a new graphics card. I don't think I've got one, so in the meantime I've ordered NVIDIA Quadra 600 low profile card from eBay, which will be here in a few days if nothing else. I'll put that in. So it's all working. It's working at 640 by 480 and that's good enough for now, but I'm pleased with the way the machines come together. The bezel's cleaned up really nicely. I'm not happy with the words over that auto and menu on the buttons at the bottom, and I'm pleased with the way the bezel at the bottom's come together. I've got a new DVD drive in there and I've pulled it forward so it's now flush with the front, and I've gone from not really giving a damn about this shitty XP system that cost about £20 on eBay as parts only, but I'm beginning to like it, so hopefully it'll be something that I'll use in the future. Just when I'd resigned myself to waiting for that Quadra 600 to arrive from eBay, I found this when I was just sorting through some random stuff. It's a low profile GT 630, but it has a full size faceplate for the slot, so it wouldn't fit. But I have this other Asus card, which I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's some really rubbishy card, but it has a double half height plate, and I should be able to swap them over because they're both Asus cards, and I should be able to get this NVIDIA GT30 into the machine, and I believe it's a fairly comparable card to the 7570, probably a little bit slower, but should still do the job for what I'm aiming for, hopefully. So the graphics card's on its new bracket and it fits into the machine perfectly. It's all back together and now we just have to try it out. Got the sound configuration to do because I haven't done that before. And it all looks good. It looks like we can flick through the graphics modes that we'd expect to work with this monitor and they all play nice, which is cool. So that is good. So we've got something usable here now that we can continue with the mission to make this into the little Windows XP gaming machine. I also did some work with the transfers. I got rid of the stickers and got some transfer letters, rub-on transfer letters, and then gave it a little spray of clear lacquer over the top to protect them from coming off. They're not perfect, but they're a lot better than they were, and I think I can live with that, and I'm okay with the way that the logo sticker turned out at the top. So I think the machine is finished cosmetically, the software is on, the graphics driver's working, but this whole thing took a lot longer than I was expecting it to, so what I'm probably going to do now is call an end to this video and do a short follow-up in a few days where I do some benchmarking and some gameplay and see if this thing really does do what I want it to do, which is just to be a reasonably enjoyable XP Pentium 4 gaming machine. That's all I want. I don't really want to do a lot with this machine because it's not, like as I say, it's not really what I regard as retro, but there's some fun games that I used to play back in the day and I'm looking forward to playing them again. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed watching this resurrection of this Viglen Omnino machine, and if you did, I'd be grateful if you'd consider giving me a thumbs up or maybe even consider subscribing, and I hope you'll check back for part 2 of this, which should be following shortly. Thanks for watching.